legislature. Now, for you that may not be familiar with Representative Soto, uh, Darren has been one of our friends for many years. He served in the Florida legislature before he ran for Congress. He represents some of Orange County, Osceola, and Polk County. He is central Florida. And our women have worked to help get him elected ever since he was back in the Florida House and Senate up through there. He's one of our favorite people, and he has worked for the things that we support. And we invited him here because, frankly, this last week, I'm sure you all have heard on the news about the passage of the American Rescue Act. Well, this act has done more for the common person in this country than any legislation that's been passed since FDR and the New Deal. Now, Johnson passed some good things, but this one's got a lot in it, and it brought tears to my eyes when I was reading some of it, and I just wanted Representative Soto to explain the act to you and spend some time talking about the For the People bill that's up and maybe whatever he would like to talk about. We're just appreciative of his time, and I wanted you all to hear it from somebody that's working on it up there. So Darren, I'm going to turn it over to you, and if you have questions, put them in the chat, and when we're finished here, we'll see if he has time. We'll take questions from people. And Vivian Rodriguez, I talked to Vivian. Vivian, who works in his office, has been one of our members forever. And we're going to record this so that he can use it on maybe on his Facebook page or wherever he would like. Okay, so you are being recorded tonight, people. I just wanted to let you know that. So anyhow, it's yours, Representative Soto. Thank you for being here, Darren.
Thank you, Patricia, and thank you for this great opportunity to speak to the Democratic Women's Caucus of Florida. We know how much work you all have done. You worked so hard throughout this election season to help get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected as the president and vice president of the United States, a historic election for women with the first female vice president, something that we'll be telling our daughters and granddaughters about. And you all helped make it happen. And we know while things came up short in Florida, hold your heads up high, because we made them spend every last darn penny down here so we could take them in the Midwest. I know many of you made phone calls during the special Senate runoff elections for Ossoff and Warnock, so thank you for that. We couldn't have done this without you. And we know why we elected the Biden-Harris ticket, because we are in an incredible dual crisis that is so desperately needed, that we need real leadership. While we can't solve every problem right away, we know with the right leaders in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, with a Democratic unified federal government, that we can do the right things. I'm glad, Patricia, you had mentioned the 1933 New Deal Congress, because that is what it feels like at this very moment. A time when it seemed like everything was lost. It seemed like America couldn't do big things right anymore. And it seemed like hate and division was consuming our nation. And we know we face a dual crisis with the pandemic and with an economic recession. And I was there in the chamber, trapped when there was a Capitol insurrection, trying to even stop the Electoral College results. But like you didn't give up on Florida during the election, we didn't give up on America. We saw it through that night, and now hope is on the horizon. Our Democratic members are united to lead the nation out of this pandemic and to build back better. That is more than just a slogan. It means to ensure prosperity for everyone and build back our institutions and an economy that works for everyone. Like with 1933 with the New Deal, we started out big. Joe Biden got elected to go big with the American Rescue Plan, a $1.9 trillion major response and relief package to help us with these dual crises at a time when America needed us most. There are many different provisions in it. First and foremost, $84 billion for COVID, vaccine distribution, testing, contact tracing. And we heard, now that we've passed the bill, President Biden declared just this week, and I hope you heard his speech this week, that as of May 1st, all American adults are scheduled to be eligible for the vaccine. And it was the American Rescue Plan that is going to help us get there. Now, we know a few big changes in Florida have been visible over the last couple of weeks. One, the community vaccination centers. They're run by FEMA and the National Guard. The eligibility is much broader than the state guidelines run by Governor DeSantis. We also have the National Pharmacy Program, and that's all those retail pharmacies as well as Publix, Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, and Winn-Dixie, among others. We also called for a Department of Justice investigation on the first day that Attorney General Merrick Garland was in office to investigate the DeSantis vaccine fundraising scandal, something that has troubled all of us. So the vaccine, first and foremost, and when I declared in February that we were going to be in phase 2 by March, the press looked at me like I was overly optimistic, but I knew the numbers and I knew the scale and the funding we were going to have. And now we're leading the way where we'll be well into phase 3 as we get to April and May. Of course, it included the $1,400 survival checks. This finishes the promise of $2,000 survival checks that Biden made in December when we had $600 there, and now an additional $1,400. Many of you may have started to receive these checks over the weekend if you get direct deposit. Make no mistake about it. So many of our fellow Floridians are struggling in so many ways. And these checks will be the difference between survival for a lot of folks, or at least to get them through a tough time. In addition, we extended $300 in unemployment assistance on the federal level until September 6th. This is on top of the state benefits, which are still way too low at $275. And this is key for areas like the tourism corridor in Central Florida and South Florida, where many of my constituents are still out of work or they're underemployed. And small businesses obviously are hurting, and we continued with emergency disaster loans for them. Another key thing that I know that the Democratic Women's Caucus of Florida cares about is healthcare. So we included a COBRA subsidy. For those who lost their job, we provide 100% subsidies for COBRA for up to 6 months. And President Biden reopened a special enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act. We also included in there a really sweetheart deal for Florida to expand Medicaid. Now there should be no excuse. If they expand, we increase 5% of our contribution in the original program. And so that more than covers the 10% cost they'll eventually have in the Medicaid expansion program. So overall, Florida will draw down more federal dollars if they expand Medicaid. This is one of those things we're going to need your help in Tallahassee. I know there's been a lot of battles. You all fought the Medicaid wars, as have I, but over nearly 1 million Floridians are counting on us. So I'm counting on you all to be able to go up to Tallahassee and continue that fight. We also increased SNAP benefits, our food assistance benefits, by 15%. No child should go hungry. No senior should go hungry. No person with disabilities in Florida should go hungry. Those are the most likely enrollees in the SNAP program, and it just wasn't covering enough. In addition, we had a record $26 billion in housing utilities assistance. This adds on to the $25 billion we had in the December CARES Act supplemental package. So for keeping score, $50 billion in housing assistance to catch people up on rent, to help them catch up on mortgages. Meanwhile, we have the moratorium on mortgage foreclosures till June 3rd, and rent moratorium is till the end of March, but we're going to be pushing that hopefully till September. And the key is this: we learned from the Great Recession a few key lessons. One, we didn't go big enough in the Great Recession. Two, we waited too long to compromise with the Republicans. And so in addition, it went from the top down rather than from working families on up. And what we saw in Florida, 5 years of recession. We saw our housing market collapse and new construction and all those jobs left. So many seniors, their biggest investment, their house, dropped half in value, and we didn't recover for 5 years. Homeownership still isn't back to where it was before the Great Recession. We knew the mistakes back then had to be fixed. In addition, Uncle Joe and Kamala Harris are going on the road. You'll see them this week. Help is Here tours will be at a region near you in Florida soon. They just stopped in Nevada and Pennsylvania this week. They'll be headed to Florida. This was a key other thing. We can't assume America will remember what the Democrats did to save us from the abyss. We will go from the very beginning to tell every community across this nation, especially key frontline communities in swing areas, swing states, what we did to help rescue America. And that's what the American Rescue Act is all about. In addition, we have $350 billion in state and local fiscal aid. This is to keep our first responders on the job, our teachers, our nurses, our cops, our firefighters, and other first responders like EMTs. Florida is set to get $17 billion, $10 billion for the state and $7 billion for local governments. So with a $2 billion deficit and a $10 billion payout coming to the state of Florida, there should be no cuts in Florida. No cuts to Sadowski Fund, no cuts to teachers' pay, no cuts to environmental protection or Medicaid. We shouldn't see those things. And so hopefully that'll help you with a rally cry as you do those battles during session. And another $7 billion going to local governments. This is key too. We can't have unemployment of the very first responders we're counting on to get us out of the pandemic, have them be fired. And we were able to lower the threshold so that counties and cities of 200,000 and above now get direct assistance. They don't have to wait on Governor DeSantis to get them their money. This is key in Central Florida for my home county of Osceola, or for counties like Seminole County, while Orange County and Polk County that I represent got their money directly. In addition, schools and childcare. Let me start with schools. My wife is a member of the teachers union. She's now an assistant principal just recently at our public schools in Buenaventura Lakes in Osceola County. She was teaching kids in classroom with a mask, socially distanced. Kids had masks with the barriers in the peak of our pandemic in July and August. Why? Because she cares about the kids. And we know parents need options. Some parents can afford to teach at home with the technology and the space that's needed. Other parents, they have to go back to work. But our schools need to be safe. And so that's why our K through 12 education will get $7 billion for K through 12 to help out to make sure our schools are safe. Our local universities and colleges will get another $2.2 billion just in Florida, $7.4 billion for K through 12 schools, $2.2 billion for Florida higher ed. And then another $47 million for Head Start in Florida for our little ones. This is key. This is about 10 times the relief that our local schools got under the CARES Act. And we gave them 3 times the CARES Act relief in December. So now we're talking about real money to open our schools, get the technology that they need, and keep our kids safe. In addition, we've known both that our schools and childcare have led to an erosion of women in the workforce. We're now at 1984 rates, or at least we were a month or two ago. What a disgrace that is in our nation, with the advancement, having erosion of women in the workforce back 20, 30 years. And so we provided another $2.4 billion for our childcare facilities to expand free childcare and have our childcare facilities be safe so we could reopen. So the families have choices about parents staying home or going to work. We can't afford to have our workforce have literally half our workforce staying at home if that's not what they want to do. Families need to be able to make decisions, and we stand for women and men, parents, to be able to make those decisions. In addition, we have over $30 billion for public transit. In Central Florida, this means Sunrail, this means Lynx and Citrus Connection. In South Florida, it means Tri-Rail and local bus and transit agencies across the state. Obviously key so that Americans can get back to work. We incentivize paid sick leave because people shouldn't be going to work if they're sick with COVID. As Joe Biden would say, do I really have to say this? The bill provides for incentivizing emergency paid leave through September 30th, 2021, with a maximum benefit of $1,400 per week, making up to $73,000 per year. Lastly, we included worker protections. We need an OSHA that's actually on the job again so that workers in Florida aren't getting sick and families aren't getting sick. So we have $150 million to implement COVID-19 worker protection programs and also $75 million for OSHA enforcement so that we could keep our workforce healthy. I also wanted to go into an update on the Equal Rights Amendment. I know this is something that Patricia had asked me to specifically hone in on. I know many of you have fought these battles since the 70s, and we know that we're continuing our journey to a more equal nation, but not without the ERA, we aren't. Now, many of you, including myself, were disappointed when a few weeks ago, a federal judge ruled that a recent state vote to ratify proposed equal rights amendments came too late by the terms of the amendment. There's arguments about whether it being the preamble, does it count or not? I think it's pretty clear those states are going to appeal, like Virginia. And then you saw the Trump Justice Department saying that their position was that Congress can't revive the proposed amendment because of the ratification deadline. However, this week, your House Democrats were going to be passing that resolution that would repeal the original 1979 deadline set by Congress, declaring there is no deadline. If we could amend it before, we should be able to amend it now. And to quote Jackie Spears, an amazing feminist leader and the chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus in Congress, happens to be my family out in the West Coast member of Congress. She said, I quote, with President Biden and Vice President Harris at the helm, this will finally be the year we ratify the ERA to the Constitution. We know it's not going to be that simple. We need your help in the Senate. We have all the Democrats supportive, and we have 2 Republicans, Collins and Murkowski, supportive, but we need to get to 10 members. There is a lot of interpretation that it couldn't go through reconciliation. And so we have to work like we did during the presidential election. And that means Democratic Women's Caucus of Florida members calling and working different senators and working with your colleagues and other women's caucuses across the nation to find us 8 votes in the Senate. We didn't pass this because people sat on the sidelines, because we all fought together. You could count on my vote and the vote of House Democrats to pass this bill, but we need help in the Senate. The last thing I wanted to mention before going into a few questions is it's been a busy first 100 days. Like when FDR took the helm during the Great Depression, Biden and Harris have stepped up to do some amazing things in Congress, and I know you all have had our backs. On the very first day, President Biden issued 10 COVID-19 related executive orders to establish the National Pharmacy Program so that we don't have to go through DeSantis anymore, to establish these FEMA vaccine sites like you see in West Orange County at Valencia, and as we're calling them, the spoke sites that you see. The main ones can do 2,000 vaccines a day, and the spoke sites do 500 a day. We're going to keep those up so that we don't have to wait on the governor to ask for a favor. We shouldn't be begging for vaccines. It's an American right, and we're going to deliver through the federal level. And for those of you who haven't visited the FEMA sites, my wife, an educator, finally was made eligible last Sunday, and we got there at about 7:30 in the morning, waited an hour and a half, and she got her shot. It was efficient, and we're seeing, and sometimes during the weekdays, there's no line. So what are you waiting for? If you haven't gotten vaccinated, you know what Dr. Fauci says. They're safe. They're going to save your lives and the lives of your families. So I hope you all get vaccinated if you haven't already. In addition, we've had a busy couple weeks in Congress as we just finished the 50-day mark. We passed the Justice and Policing Act, making sure that we're going to protect individual rights and make sure our police are held accountable after the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many other African Americans across the nation, because we know Black Lives Matter. We also passed the Lgbtq Equality Act to make sure that LGBTQ communities are protected in all civil rights in all major rights statutes, from voting to housing, to family rights, to the workplace, to public accommodations. In addition, we passed H.R. 1, which protects key voting rights, like the right to register online, like the right for early voting for 15 days, like the right to vote by mail without an excuse, making sure that dark money is disclosed, making sure that presidents have to disclose their tax returns, and working on empowering small dollar donations with matching funds, among other issues. We know there's over 160 GOP state legislative bills trying to have an assault on democracy for one reason and one reason only. We won and they can't stand it. With your help, we won, but we have to protect it. Now, I know many of us are concerned about the filibuster, and there have already been some statements from both liberal to centrist Democrats that the doors cracked open a little bit now about passing the Voting Rights Act, H.R. 1, or at least parts of it, without the filibuster, because we know the filibuster has had a history of being used to promote segregation and condemn voting rights. Obviously, a lot of us, including myself, wish it would go away altogether, but we got to take it where we could get it in the Senate with a 50-50 tie-breaking vote by Vice President Harris. In addition, we passed the Protecting America's Wilderness and Public Lands Act, which protects nearly 3 million acres of public lands as part of President Biden's goal of protecting at least 30% of U.S. lands from development by 2030. This is part of our plan to combat the climate crisis. In the first 100 days, President Biden got us back into the Paris Climate Accord. He got us back into the WTO and the WHO so that we're involved in world trade and world health organizations. He ended all these anti-immigrant orders, from the Muslim travel ban to reinstituting DACA to ending many anti-environmental and anti-choice rollbacks, including Untitled 10. I know choice is a huge issue for so many of you on this call, and we were really pleased about that. In addition, we passed universal background checks and the Charleston loophole, closing that as well. We know 90% of Americans support making sure that every transfer of a gun, every sale, you have a background check. And the Charleston loophole ends dangerous laws that say if you don't get your background check back in 48 hours, you automatically get a gun. That's what caused a racist Confederate flag toting young man from Charleston to shoot up a historically African-American church and kill a state senator on top of that. In addition, we stand with our brothers and sisters in labor. We passed the PRO Act that ensures that you can't have workplace intimidation to prevent from having unions, to make sure that you can't abuse independent contractor and 1099 employees, making sure we reiterate the right to collectively bargain. We know, along with during the New Deal, it was the rise of unions that helped build the middle class. We need to protect unions for the next generation to make sure we're tackling all these new issues that come up with the gig economy. And so we were honored to pass the PRO Act to work with our brothers and sisters in labor. In addition, an issue near and dear to my heart, for several years, I've been pushing for temporary protective status for Venezuelans. We have over 200,000 of them in Florida. And many of them, their family members are citizens and they vote. And finally, after Trump refused to do it for 4 years, President Biden helped make it happen in the first month. That was a big win for Team Soto, a big win for Florida, and a way to show many folks who may have been disenfranchised, particularly South Florida Hispanics, about what the word socialism means and what Democrats stand for. Found out within the first 30 days, Biden did more than Trump did for them in 4 years. These are the types of ways that we help ourselves to make sure we stand with a bigger pool of voters going into the midterms when we have gubernatorial and Senate races, by pulling folks back to the fold, by improving their lives through the American Rescue Act and issues like this. This week, we talked about it. We have the ERA. We have an expansion of Violence Against Women's Act to help better encompass Native Americans and immigrant women. We have the Dream and Promise Act to give dreamers and TPS and DED holders a pathway to citizenship. I was able to include a change in the bill from last year so that all the Venezuelans, the over 200,000 in Florida who had DED now and TPS, are now eligible for a pathway to citizenship if they stay for more than 3 years. That'll be a huge, huge move And then the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. This is a key issue where we as Democrats can deliver for rural America. This is great for Florida agriculture. It raises wages because people are then made lawful and they're able to have a pathway to citizenship. And it makes sure we're respecting the very people who help feed America. And obviously many are my fellow Hispanics, so this is an issue near and dear to you and near and dear to me. Let me end before I take questions by saying we need your help. This is an ambitious agenda and we're just getting started. But it's not going to happen unless we continue to have that enthusiasm that so many of you showed during the election. We lost the battle here in Florida, but we won the war. Now it's time to dust ourselves off and make sure we can help in Florida and across our nation, because these bills only pass the finish line and get through the Senate with your help and the help of Democratic women across the nation doing the hard work you did during the presidential election. So thank you for this opportunity to talk about some of the biggest issues of our time that people will be talking about for decades to come, and how Democrats stood in the void and helped rescue America so that we could build back better and create a new and better society. But we need your help to do so. With that, thank you, Patricia, for having me. And I have time to take a few questions.
Okay, let me see. Okay, I have a couple to start with, and then we'll move to the chat boxes. First one, you touched on it, but I would like for you to elaborate. We are terrified that they are going to change the vote by mail status in this state. There's bills up there to do it now. He may take away drop boxes, and our women work nonstop for the last 2 years to get 150,000 plus women and men registered for vote by mail. And will the For the People Act supersede what they pass in Tallahassee? Will it protect it, or will Tallahassee's voice be the only one that we have to listen to in Florida? How will that work?
It will preempt general and primary elections because there are federal elections on the ballot. And by the US Constitution, the Congress sets the terms of federal elections. It should apply to most local elections that are on the ballot, but those things can differ.
Okay.
Bottom line, our strategy is this. In the House, we're a rowdy group of progressive Democrats and some who are just left of center that are pushing out major ambitious pieces of legislation. But we're going to pass what we can get through the Senate. We know that with the American Rescue Act, didn't have everything we wanted in it, but it was very ambitious. So we're hopeful as we passed out this bill that is ideal for what we want, and it's a total overhaul. We know even if we could get the Voting Rights Act passed back, which has pre-clearance again so that no state voting laws can take effect until federal review, that it protects the right to early vote for 15 days, including the Sunday before the election, that it protects a right to vote by mail without an excuse, that it protects the ability to online registration, among other key parts, so that we can avoid discriminatory laws. That will lay to waste the seditious and terrible plans of so many state legislators, including ours. So we really need your help in the Senate, working on making sure that we can exempt the filibuster from voting rights. The history supports it, even if someone is more centrist on the filibuster, that has been used as a tool of segregation, that in this issue, it's essential. And plus, we also want to continue to have input to the administration. President Biden has won by showing some balance with the nation, and we know that. Hey, we like a winner, right? And President Biden's comments in Georgia will shed a little more light on it. We'll see in a week or two, but he's widely expected to urge the Senate to exempt out the Voting Rights Act from the filibuster, given the history of it. And we know in Georgia, it's one of those other states that we did very well, but they are super furious about it, as suburbs in and around Atlanta were registered and voted in record turnout that turned the tide in Georgia and turned it blue. And I cannot stress how important it is for those of you who volunteered to do phone banking in Georgia.
Yeah,
We are in a totally different world if Mitch McConnell, the Grim Reaper, kept his graveyard of House bills. There'd be the same playbook they would have used in 2009 after we lost the filibuster-proof Senate. They would have not let anything through, filibuster, 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 and then say, government doesn't work, elect us now. And because we haven't solved the issues, then a lot of our voters stay home. This time around, we're not doing that. And we couldn't have done this without you, without winning both those two Georgia special or runoff elections. That changed the course of history. And I know a lot of you in Florida did phone banking, so thank you for that. Let's take our next question.
Okay, one more from me, and then we'll go to the chat. And I encourage you all to put your questions in the chat box, please, so that we can review them and go over them. This was brought to my attention today, and it is a concern. You were in the Florida legislature up there when the Democratic Women's Club of Florida was leading the fight for medical marijuana for seizure patients and everything else. And it was brought to my attention by a person who's very concerned that President Biden, with all the good that he's doing, there's going to be a tighten up on medical marijuana use and marijuana laws. Can you address that at all? Are you familiar with anything about it?
So first of all, we already passed last term and will continue to push to get marijuana off the schedule for controlled substances, leave it to the states, and from there legalize having bank accounts and all the other things that it takes, including research at the VA as we build the case for nationwide legalization or adult reuse, as we call it. I do not expect the Biden administration to pull in the laws one bit. I've not heard anybody say that. I don't believe that'll happen, and they would hear from us. We already know in Florida, we have legalized medical marijuana. The voters have. We expect in 2022, there'll be at least one, perhaps two adult use amendments for you all to vote on. And I certainly encourage you to vote yes on the adult use marijuana amendment for several reasons. First, we know why we passed the medical marijuana amendment, because everybody knows by now it has medical uses, from pain relief to hunger, addressing hunger to sleep, among many other uses that have been shown already. The case for adult use is pretty clear. One, we'd regulate it just like alcohol, 21 and up, heavily regulated. You need licenses to sell it. It would be that same regime, so kids wouldn't be able to have it. Number two, we know that the penalties right now far outweigh the harm to society, which are no worse than alcohol, in my humble opinion. And third, with regard to adult use, we've seen laws misapplied, particularly in communities of color, and we have a patchwork right now. In Osceola County, where I live, they have decriminalized it, so police have the discretion to give you a ticket. In the city of Orlando, they have the discretion to give you a ticket, as do they in Volusia County. But in Orange County, you'd probably get pretrial diversion. And in Polk County, they'd probably lock you up for a year and a day and you go to prison. And we know it's mostly communities of color that have been the ones most targeted for marijuana laws. So it's time. I urge you all to help work to pass this adult use amendment. And I do not expect any stricter marijuana enforcement of any regulations by the Biden administration. I think they haven't rolled anything out yet because we're in the midst of a crisis, and the president is nearly singularly focused on the American Rescue Act, its implementation, and getting us out of the COVID-19 crisis, and he'll be turning to infrastructure next, while the Congress is working on all those other bills that we talked about. And I think that's key, because that's what the nation elected Joe Biden to do to save us from the abyss that Trump left us with over 500,000 Americans dead. So if you don't see things right away that they're doing, it doesn't mean they're not thinking about it. Believe me, they have thousands of appointees. People are thinking about it. But the president and the vice president are singly focused on making sure we could explain to every American what the American Rescue Act means for them and their families. And that takes that kind of Harry Truman style of getting out to America, that FDR style that we saw and others did so well. So we see that already. We're going to continue to work on that.
Okay,
I
here's
got
a
time for about 2 more questions.
Okay, well, let me hit you with this one then. And it's kind of double. You have asked us several times here to appeal to the people in Washington. A lot of times, the only people that email lets us appeal to are our own legislators. And we have Rubio and Scott, as you know. Can we actually, is there any hope of appealing to them? Do you think they are changeable in any way? Is there any hope of bipartisanship on a national level to pull some of these Republicans over? Can we target particular ones that you know of?
So first of all, many of you are no strangers to protesting and to doing both social media and in-person campaigns to push for an issue. Even if we can't succeed in changing the minds of either Rick Scott or Marco Rubio, we can't just let them off the hook for making these decisions that are not in the best interest of Floridians. So whether you're by any of these means, by social media, by political activism, by attending different venues and events that may happen, that's important. Many of you have families in other states where their senators may be more amenable. We should work with them. Many of you have linked up with Democratic women's caucuses of other states, and you can help call their constituents in states that may be swayable as well. So there's a lot you could do. We saw that in Georgia. I know for a fact a lot of Florida Democratic Party activists called to help out with those 2 Georgia races. Those are all ways we could do it. We live in the United States, so even though Florida is our main focus, there are ways we can help other states through family, through calls to action from other states where their members are close, where you call voters, but also through political activism. Even if they vote no, it should be a clear reminder to all Floridians that if our senators vote no on a bill they should be voting yes on, that everybody knows this was a bad vote. And they may, if you have enough pressure, you never know what might happen. It is an election year for Rubio, so he in particular, I'm sure, is looking over his shoulder. But either way, this group is you all are the political activist warriors, and I'm asking you to continue to do all that you do to make your voice heard through peaceful protest and through everything from events to social media to all the other things you could help out in other states.
Okay. Do you have time for a few more questions, or one, or what do you have time for?
I'll take 2 more questions.
Okay. From the chat, is raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour now a priority since it could not be passed as part of the American Rescue Act?
It continues to be a priority for the House Democrats. We passed it out last term, and we passed it in our version of the American Rescue Act. Sadly, the Senate parliamentarian, and I don't even get me started about how ridiculous it is that one staffer in the Senate can wield that much power, but the parliamentarian said that it was not budget enough related where it could pass through reconciliation, sadly. In Florida, we're already on the track to increase our minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2026, and many employers are doing it. But we still stand in solidarity with the many states that are being left behind. So we'll continue to push in various pieces of legislation and as a standalone bill, raising the wage to $15 an hour by 2026. The federal legislation mirrors our state legislation or state amendment pretty closely. So yes, we will continue that crusade. We need to have living wages for all Americans, particularly those who work 40 hours a week. Nobody works a full week should have to live in poverty in the United States.
Here is one from one of our members who's also a retired post office worker. What are we going to do to protect the post office? And can we get the post office back on track after this guy has messed it up?
So one thing that I've learned, you don't mess with the post office. 90% of Americans approve of the post office, and they did it. And we saw seniors get their medicines late. We saw ordinary holiday gifts and birthday gifts come in late. We saw packages that we ordered online, especially during a pandemic, come in late. So America is awakened to the fact that they messed with the post office. We need to fix it. The first thing we did is provide billions in relief to the post office in the December CARES Act supplemental package. This will shore up a lot of the major budget shortfalls, which are, by the way, caused by design by the Republicans by making them have to have 100+% of their pension be paid for, when by all accounts having 90 to 92% is considered overly healthy. And many are funded at about 85%, because when they mean 100%, they mean if every post office employee retired tomorrow, they'd be able to provide them all benefits, which we know doesn't happen. Secondly, we know that Biden has already identified 3 people he's going to put on the post office commission that will then now have the votes to get DeJoy the heck out of there. So that's happening. And it's a process like anything else. It takes a little while. We're seeing more and more of Biden's secretaries and administrators be confirmed. And that obviously has announced 3 people already. So it's only a matter of time before we have a post office commission that actually represents our values and kicks DeJoy at least to the back of the minority of the commission. And then we can pursue some of these other reforms. Another key issue is we still have our post office workers aren't eligible for certain Social Security and other benefits. That has to be fixed as well. I'm honored to have Malcrest, one of the major retirement communities for letter carriers in a beautiful rural area of Polk County in the district. And I'm looking forward to going back to say hello to my friends in Malcrest again soon.
Okay. We know that you're crunched for time here.
I have time for one more question.
Okay. How would you suggest we reach out to our Spanish-speaking voters in Florida in the 2022 elections?
Well, it helps to have Spanish speakers. Va a ayudar mucho para tener personas que pueden hablar en español como yo. It helps to have folks who could speak in Spanish like me and others. And we have a large Spanish-speaking population in Central Florida, predominantly Puerto Rican and Mexican American. We have many Cuban Democrats, even though it was a tough year in South Florida. And obviously we elected Manny Diaz as our chair, a Cuban Democrat who's fluent in Spanish. That having someone who could go on the local news stations in Spanish, very important. I could tell you that working with some of the local We Are Home or Dreamer groups or immigrant groups that are very democratically aligned, doing joint events with them never hurts. We have some bilingual legislators and local officials doing events with them really helps. And you know, for some of you who are feeling up to it, learning a few phrases in Spanish here and there to weave into your speeches. Some of it's about respect. Many folks aren't purely Spanish speakers. They speak Spanish as their first language. And when they hear some Spanish, not token phrases, but things here and there, it's a sign of respect. But yes, I encourage you all to hire and elect diverse leadership in the Democratic Women's Caucus of Florida so that you always have a Spanish speaker on the board who could help translate into Spanish and use the party infrastructure. I know things are getting retooled right now, but to use the party infrastructure, maybe the Hispanic Democratic Caucus members and others to help translate your press releases in Spanish. And also for social media you're putting out, do some of them in Spanish. Right now for the vaccines, for instance, I'm running public service ads in English and in Spanish from our office. And I regularly do bilingual town halls and do a lot of interviews in Spanish when we're doing big things like Venezuela TPS, like Dreamers, like statehood for Puerto Rico, like the Farm Worker Modernization Act, all key issues for Central Floridians and for a lot of folks around the state and TPS generally. So these are all issues that that you're going to want to talk about, but always, whenever you're talking to the Hispanic community, remember there are always going to be bread and butter issues that we all care about. So make sure your messaging focuses on some bread and butter issues that everyone cares about, just in Spanish, and then some key issues that may more uniquely affect the Hispanic community or immigrant communities. We in the Hispanic community care deeply about access to healthcare. Many of us are small business owners, so small business relief is very important. We're an entrepreneurial people. In addition, food assistance and housing assistance in certain areas are really key, because some of us live in the more urban environments where housing has gotten so expensive, and raising the minimum wage, a big issue. Some of us work in tourism. So always weave in bread and butter issues along with issues like disaster relief for Puerto Rico, or helping our dreamers, or ESOL reform. That's really important, so that when you're talking with the Hispanic community, you're talking about issues that all families care about, and then you add in, you spice up your agenda a little bit with a few things that the Hispanic community may care uniquely or more so about than maybe some other communities. And those are all the things that I think would help you all out. Especialmente para tener líderes en el caucus de mujeres demócratas, quien puede comunicar en ambos idiomas y tener estos puntos por todos estos asuntos, por todas las familias y por asuntos que están específicamente por hispanos. So thank you, everyone. Let me end where I began. Thank you for all the hard work you did. We know we made them spend every last penny down in Florida. We took them out in the Midwest and in Georgia and Arizona. We're going to dust ourselves off because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they need our help. The Democratic Congress needs your help. So whether it's political activism, whether it is going to Tallahassee to fight for these values, whether it's calling folks out of state that we're targeting to work on a certain senator, because the Senate's going to be, where a lot of things are made or broken, and just political activism in general, like protests and speaking up, so that even if our senators in Florida may not vote with us, the majority of Floridians will know what the right vote should have been and why. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it so much. Democratic Women's Caucus of Florida. We appreciate the longtime friendship, and you'll see we'll put this out on our social media pages, since you're the only Democratic caucus we'll be doing this with for the foreseeable future. So we want to make sure all the caucuses and the Florida Democratic Party have the benefit of this presentation. And Patricia, thank you again so much.
Thank
United
you.
we stand.
And we have numerous people thanking you in the chat, and thank you for your time.
You bet.
We
United we
appreciate
stand.
you being here. Thank you.
United
so
we
much.
stand. United we win. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.
Good night. Thank you, Darren. Well, that was very informative, and I thank all of you all for being on here tonight. And I would appeal to you to let's